Daniel Penny in New York, do you think he's going to get off, or do you think they're going to convict him?
I think he has the typical 10% chance of getting convicted. I don't think
Mhm.
he should be convicted,
Mhm.
but I think there's running that chance. And frankly, it's another bad outcome case. I think no one was more surprised that Jordan Neely died than Daniel Penny.
Mhm.
I think he had no intention of causing harm to that guy at all. He was just going to restrain him for police. I don't believe he was choking him for more than a few seconds. I think he was just restraining him with an arm around him. But he was positioned to apply what we call a rear naked choke. It's a particular choking
Mhm.
technique from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And we apply it in the gym all the time. I've applied the rear naked choke to hundreds of people. I've had it applied to me hundreds of times. No one in our gyms ever died of it.
Mhm.
Um, but I think what often happens is people get trained in this technique, and Daniel Penny was trained in the Marine Corps on this
Mhm.
technique. I'm sure he applied it to Marines. They didn't die. His fellow Marines applied it to him. He didn't die. But all the people we're talking about are relatively young, healthy, fit people. And
So
I think when you take that same technique and you apply it to someone with a compromised physiology
Mhm.
because they're homeless or they're a lifelong alcoholic or they're a drug addict or they have metabolic disease or they're just messed up physiologically. They're frail. You apply that same technique to them that never kills anybody in your experience, and that person with the frail physiology, they just turn off. They just die. I think that's what happened here. Now, importantly, Jordan Neely was actually alive
Mm.
when the police arrived, and Daniel Penny, he had a pulse.
Oh, he was oh, wow.
Yep. So it wasn't, you would think if you were choking someone to death, they got to be dead when you stop choking them. If they're
Mhm.
not dead yet, they start breathing again.
Mhm.
And we know Jordan Neely had a pulse. We know the other people on the train have testified at his trial. We hear from news reports that Jordan Neely was, in fact, threatening them with harm. He wasn't afraid to go to jail,
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. They were terrified.
Mhm.
Um, so the evidence is overwhelmingly in Daniel Penny's favor. The law is in his favor. You're allowed to use force in defense of other people as well as yourself. But it's a bad outcome case because we have a dead person, and nobody wanted that person dead. I'm sure Daniel Penny did not want Jordan Neely dead. I'm sure no one was more surprised than him. But here we have a dead body. And now the prosecutor sees an opportunity to gain political advantage. Of course, Daniel Penny is
Oh.
white, Jordan Neely was black. So we have that racial energized component again.
So, is there anything he could have done differently?
Yeah, he could have not intervened.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
meant in the if he was gonna intervene, was there anything he could have done differently from your perspective?
I do say in my own gym to my fellow students that we need to be very careful with these chokes because we're probably not going to be defending ourselves against another member of our gym.
Mhm.
We're going to be defending ourselves out on the street from someone who may well be homeless, alcoholic, drug addict, and have this frail physiology. And you might apply a choke and just kill this person. I
Mhm.
worked a murder case personally where we had a person from our gym put a choke on a homeless person who was attacking him, and that guy died. And my fellow gym student got charged with murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide. I had to testify as an expert witness at his trial. Got him acquitted too, by the way. Um, but I advise people listen, if you have to do a choke to live, you got to win the fight. That's the most important thing.
Mhm.
But if you have an option other than a choke, if you have a joint lock, something else you can do, because you can put a joint lock in someone's elbow and destroy their elbow,
Mhm.
but you're not going to kill them by
Mhm.
destroying their elbow. Then you avoid that risk of the person just turning off because you put a choke on them.
So, would you advise your clients not to get involved when they see something happen? Would you just say it's not worth the risk?
It's a great question. So I don't tell people what to do.
Mhm.
Um, Everybody has kind of a different moral line where they
Mhm.
feel what the appropriate conduct is.
Mhm.
It's not my job to tell people to intervene or not intervene. What I try to do is help people make an informed decision. So if they're intervening, they know what risks they're incurring. And the risks of intervening are death and life in prison. Those are the risks. You go hands on in a physical fight, the risk of losing, of dying in that physical fight is never zero. It's something greater than zero.
Mhm.
You get involved in that legal fight, you get fed into the criminal justice system. The risk of conviction is never zero. It's always more than zero. So I tell people, just imagine it's going to go sideways on you. Let's pretend you survived the fight because otherwise we have nothing to talk about. But that you do everything right, but you still get convicted. You get convicted, you get sentenced to jail for 20 years. What's worth 20 years in prison? There are things, I'd rather be alive in prison than dead outside of prison. I'd rather spend 20 years in prison than watch my wife or children be killed.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, I kind of run out of reasons I'd be willing to go to prison for
Yeah,
20
women
years.
you don't know. What's the...
Now, that's just how I think about it. There are
Yeah.
people out there who are going to say, no, it's the right thing to do to intervene and save that person. And
Right.
I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm not telling you not to do that, audience. If you want to intervene, intervene. Just make an informed decision knowing what the risks are.
I think if it was me, I mean, because I was on Tim Pool a couple of months ago, and I'm not, I mean, you've seen my channel. It's not super into politics. We just touch on maybe like the men's rights stuff.
Yep.
But one of the topics on the show was, I think there was people on a train watching a woman get assaulted or raped on it.
And nobody intervened.
And everyone looked at me like I was crazy when I said, why would he? Because, you know, men see this stuff on the news, and if you don't know her, I don't think that's worth 20 years in prison or your life.
I got stuff to do. I got 4 kids to raise. It's a pretty high threshold for me to be willing to go to prison.
Yeah. And you see...
By the way, I also think to myself, you know, when I became an adult, I went out, I got a gun. I got a license to carry that gun. I got trained in how to use it. I learned what the laws were. I consider that a fundamental adult responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to protect myself and the people I have a duty to protect from criminal predators.
Mm-hmm.
That person could have done that. Where's their gun?
Right.
Why aren't they defending themselves?
Equal rights, equal
Why is their
left.
failure to do that make me responsible now for their safety?
Well, in New York, too, you can't... I'm assuming it's so left you can't carry a gun, right?
It varies a little bit across the state. So you have kind of the New York City center and then the area around the city. And then you have upstate New York, which is more rural. And the gun laws vary in all those different places. Within New York City, it's all but impossible to get a concealed carry permit. And if you get one in some other part of the state, it's not valid in New York City.
So what if someone's getting attacked in New York and they shoot them with a gun that they're not allowed to carry? What happens?
That actually happened. So in I want to say the 1980s, there was a guy riding on a subway. His name was Bernie Getz. He'd been previously mugged on the subway. He'd applied for a New York City concealed carry permit, which technically exists, but is impossible to get. And they refused to give him one. He went out and got a revolver anyway. So he was carrying a revolver unlawfully in New York. And sure enough, he gets attacked on the subway again by 4 young men with sharpened screwdrivers, threatening him with weapons. He pulls out his revolver, he shoots him. And then he flees. He actually runs off to Connecticut, doesn't report the shooting, but of course it's in all the media, right? A subway vigilante shot these 4 young black men on the subway. There's a manhunt out for him. He turns himself in, and he's prosecuted. He's prosecuted for the shooting, the use of force crime, the shooting these 4 people, and he's prosecuted for the gun crime. Well, when the jury comes back with a verdict, they acquitted him of all the use of force crimes. So the shooting itself was lawful self-defense. And they convicted him of the gun crime because it was, in fact, unlawful for him to have the gun. So in that kind of situation, we end up dealing with the use of force stuff, the self-defense claims on the one hand, and the gun law stuff on the other hand. And he was cleared for the shooting and convicted of the gun.
So did he go to jail?
He went to jail.
For how long?
I think it was a few months. And then I think he was sentenced maybe to 8 months, and he did 4, and then he was released.
But in that case, I mean, that would be worth it because, I mean, 8 months versus
maybe being dead.
Yeah.
Again, I don't tell people what to do, so I'm not telling anyone to carry a gun unlawfully. If you kind of do the math and decide, well, would I take a gun conviction over being dead? I don't know. People have to make their own choices.
I never thought about it like that.
They might move to a place where it's lawful to carry a gun. I mean, there's like 45 states that make it routinely possible to carry a gun lawfully for personal protection. I know because I carry guns in all of them.
I never thought about it like that with the gun. Like, I mean, we can make money just like the men. We can now we have guns, so we can protect ourselves just like the men. So there's not really an excuse to be in that situation, really. I mean, you can always carry a gun for the most part.
I will say, it's a little inconvenient to carry a gun.
Yeah.
It's another hunk of metal you have on your body. It's a responsibility, right? You have to make sure it's always secure, that no unauthorized person can access the gun. You need to be proficient with it. So if you're going to use it, you're using it effectively, and you're not just sending bullets down the street to strike innocent people. Um, and you need to be determined enough to use it should it come to that, so somebody just doesn't take the gun off you.
Mhm.
Now, none of that's impossible. It's not even really very difficult. We went shooting today. It was the first time you ever shot a handgun. You did great. You were
Mhm.
fantastic.
Mhm.
So it's not hard to learn to shoot a handgun well enough for personal protection. But I think people have to make the affirmative choice to do that and commit themselves to doing what they need to do to acquire the low but necessary expertise and mindset to be able to bring it to bear. You know, people say when you're interacting with the police, just don't talk to the police. Never talk to the police. That's the cliche. I think it's more subtle than that. I think if you're a criminal, never talk to the police. So if you're actually a criminal, please don't talk to the police.
Mhm.
Nothing good will happen to you. On the other hand, if you're attacked and you defend yourself and you're calling 911, you're calling the police, you're talking to them then.
Mhm.
You're telling them what happened. It doesn't make sense to me that you would defend yourself, call 911, and it goes ring, 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 911, what's your emergency? And you're literally not going to say anything.
Mhm.
Why bother calling them?
Right.
I do think that it's a fair position kind of in the middle where you're not a criminal, but you didn't call the police. The police called you. They just called you. We'd like to ask you questions.
Mhm.
You can cooperate if you want. It's possible to say things that get you in trouble. And you're perfectly entitled, and I think it's a reasonable choice when the police call you and say, we have questions, to tell them, I don't answer questions.
Mhm.
Polite, not rude. I'm sorry, I just don't answer questions. And there's really nothing they can do with that. If they have probable cause to believe you've committed some crime, they can arrest you, but they could do that anyway.
Mhm.
You're not giving them more ammunition to use against you.
Mhm. So not
Well,
reasonable
so
doubt.
the law doesn't really care what weapon you use.
Mhm.
It cares a lot about the amount of force you're using. So the law of self-defense puts force into two buckets. There's non-deadly force,
Mhm.
force not likely to cause death or serious bodily injury, and there's deadly force, which means more than death that can kill you. It means force that can cause death or serious bodily injury. So a maiming injury, a broken bone, that's deadly force,
Mhm.
even if you would never have died from it. So once you're in the deadly force bucket, you're being threatened with deadly force and you're using deadly force in self-defense, the law doesn't care how you do that.
Mhm.
It could be using a knife. It could be using a gun. It could be running someone over with your car. It could be something from the Wile E. Coyote cartoons where you drop a
Mhm.
piano from a great height onto their head. It doesn't really matter. The law cares a lot about whether the conditions for deadly force have been met, but it doesn't really care a lot about what form the
Mhm.
deadly force takes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can tell you from personal experience that gunshots are way easier than bladed injuries. Sharp blades create unbelievably grievous injuries.
Mhm.
You get shot. 80% of people in America who are shot with a handgun survive,
Mhm.
which actually tells us another lesson, which is that um, if anyone's thinking they're going to point a gun at a bad guy and the bad guy's just going to run away, that happens a lot, but it's not guaranteed. A lot of bad guys out there, they've been shot. They're that 80% that's been shot before and survived. They're still bad guys. They're
Mhm.
still on the street. They're not all that scared of your gun. They've been shot before and they're still here doing bad guy stuff.
Mhm.
So you really have to be prepared. If that gun comes out, you have to be prepared to use that gun. It doesn't mean you have to use the gun.
Mhm.
Maybe they will run away and then you don't need to shoot them. That
Mhm.
would be nice. That would be a good outcome. But you need to be prepared to use it.
Mhm. What do you mean by prepared? Like you have to know how to shoot, or
You have to be willing to use the gun.
you can't be scared to pull the trigger because they'll sense that.
They'll know for sure.
Yeah, because
Most police officers who are shot with their own guns.
no way.
Yep. The bad guy takes the gun off the cop and shoots him with his own gun.
How does that happen? Is it just because they hesitate?
It's because it's very easy to take a gun off of somebody. It's shockingly easy.
Really?
Yep. For one thing, the grip on a gun is generally shorter than the length of the slide. So if you're holding the grip, you have a short lever.
Mhm.
And if they grab the slide, they have a long lever. They
Mhm.
have more leverage than you do. As far as I'm concerned, if they're grabbing for your gun, it's no different than they were reaching for a gun on a table.
Yeah.
In fact, it's worse because if they're reaching for a gun on the table, they're reaching for a gun, but you still have yours.
Mhm.
If they grab your gun, they're arming themselves and disarming you at the same time.
Mhm.
I've seen in prison surveillance video of prisoners practicing with each other how to strip guns away.